medicine is gone, Florence cried as she held up the empty wooden box. A chill ran down Ellie's spine. She had given Florence instructions to collect and preserve some herbal medicines that could be used during emergencies, and now it was all missing. Ellie wrapped the wound on her wrist with a piece of clean cloth, but was worried about infection. Are you sure you kept it there? What if it fell out? Florence dove back under the bed to check. No, milady, it was in here and now it's not. Ellie looked around for signs of intruders. Someone must have trespassed and taken them while we were at the ceremony. Florence was puzzled. Who would do such a thing? Ellie racked her brain, trying to picture the people at the ceremony. Nearly every important person in the kingdom had gathered to watch Prince James take Nerissa as his royal mistress. Ellie narrowed her eyes. Who was missing from the ceremony? Florence shook her head. I don't know. I was so worried about you that I wasn't really paying attention to the people. Ellie paced around the room, and then it hit her. Maggie. Maggie wasn't at the ceremony. But the stewardess is always busy, milady. Too busy for a special ceremony for her favorite prince? I don't think so. She raised Prince James herself. She was his nurse, his caretaker, and like a mother to him. She wouldn't have missed it in 1,000 years, unless she was snooping around. Stewardess Maggie had never liked Ellie and thought she wasn't a worthy match for the prince. She had spoiled him rotten and was now his biggest enabler. When he said he didn't want to see Ellie's face anymore, it was Maggie who came up with the idea to keep her door chained shut. Ellie was worried about Maggie's reaction. A bunch of herbs, roots, and thread lying around in a box. She probably had no idea it was medicinal. She probably thought it was witchcraft. Or maybe she just thought it was garbage, Florence asked hopefully. Ellie smiled. We can only hope, little Florence. Regardless of who stole the herbs, Ellie needed the medicine. The 13th century was turning out to be a dangerous place. There were talks of a plague creeping up to the capital, not to mention the assassination attempts by poisoning, drowning, and more. Ellie was grateful for her experience and knowledge in a century where people rarely lived past the age of 35. She looked up at Florence. Can you show me where you got the herbs? Florence nodded. Ellie pulled a cloak over herself and hid her face under a hood so as not to be recognized. Let's hurry before Maggie finds us. Florence quickly led Ellie out. The sun was falling swiftly, and the shadows grew long on the cobblestone floors of the castle. Ellie and Florence blended into the shadows as they snuck through the castle. Florence led her through the kitchens, where delicious food was being prepped for the prince and his guests. They slipped out of a hidden door and found themselves in the middle of a lush garden. Ellie froze. There was a small glass shed in the corner of the garden. She recognized it. It's a greenhouse. What's that, my lady? Ellie realized that greenhouses were a relatively modern idea, and probably why Florence didn't know what it was called. Never mind. Show me the inside. The two women crept inside the glass building. It was filled with all kinds of herbs, plants, and trees. The greenhouse itself was a more primitive design than the ones Ellie had seen in the 21st century. Who made this, Florence? Ellie asked. There are rumors of a monk who traveled all over the world and brought all these plants here about 100 years ago. Ellie recognized several useful plants inside the greenhouse. Anthem for antitoxin, moringa for antiseptic, water root for stomach issues, buttercap for infections, dragon mallow for inflammation, and witchbane for sleep. This is good, Florence. This is going to be very useful. I've told you about this garden before, but my lady was not interested at the time. I'm surprised my lady is such a skilled herbalist now. Ellie would have loved to tell Florence the truth, that she was a 21st century nurse who had been transported back in time into the body of a princess, but she knew Florence wouldn't understand it. She barely understood it herself, so Ellie decided to lie. I was taught by my mother and her mother before. We all went to the convent and learned the healing arts, but you mustn't tell anyone. Many people are skeptical of healers. I don't want to be accused of being a witch. Florence was naive and believed every word. Now the prince and his mistress won't be able to hurt you anymore. Ellie picked up some herbs and began mixing a paste for her wrist. No, they won't. Who's there? A voice boomed out. Ellie startled at the sound. She looked up to find Maggie. She cursed under her breath and was about to speak when Florence whispered to her, "Milady, hide!" Ellie ducked behind a plant and heard Florence step out of the greenhouse. It's just me, Stewardess Maggie. I was picking some sage for the cook. Well, hurry up and get inside. It's getting dark. Maggie scanned the area once more before going back into the castle. Ellie breathed a sigh of relief. Across the castle, Prince James's room was as grand as a room could be. Banners displaying the colors of his house, green and black, hung from every corner, with the noble griffin emblem. On a lush velvet bedspread, he lay with his royal mistress, Nerissa. Nerissa faked a sad face in order to get James to pity her. She wanted to provoke him and get him angry at Ellie. Your Highness, how can the princess hate me so much? I don't know what I did to offend her. James sneered, falling for Nerissa's act. That vile woman is petty and small. Don't let her get to you like this. When she made me change my pretty white dress to that vomit ugly yellow one, I thought I would die of humiliation and embarrassment. Yellow just doesn't go with my skin tone like white does. Nerissa made another fake sad face as she drew circles on James's arm. James clenched his fists. Well, you're now officially my royal mistress and under my protection. With me here, she won't dare bully you again. Nerissa was not done. She could tell James was getting mad at Ellie, but she wanted to push him further. She wanted him to do something. You know, I think she dropped that wine on me on purpose. I saw her jump back. Did you see that too? My dear Nerissa, it doesn't matter. You're here now and you're mine. Nerissa pouted and drew away. But it does matter. I saw the way you looked at her. She was really beautiful, wasn't she? James reached for his lover to console her. Listen to me, my pretty. I don't care if she's beautiful. I don't care about her at all. I have no interest in her. I find her physically repulsive. Nerissa squinted at the prince, trying to see if he was telling the truth. He was, but she still wanted to know why. Nerissa had heard the rumors about the prince and the princess. They had never consummated their marriage, and he wouldn't even look at her. There were even rumors that he had kept her locked in a cage and fed her table scraps. Whether this was true or not, it didn't matter. What was clear was that he hated her, and Nerissa really wanted to know why. Why does your Highness find Prince Eleanor so repulsive? She asked in her most innocent voice. I'm asking out of curiosity and nothing more. James leaned forward, and a darkness fell over his face. Back when I was a baby, King Philip joined forces with Princess Eleanor's father, Lord Frederick Eden, to kill my mother and father. Nerissa was not expecting this. She sat up in shock. James continued. I spent my many years trying to find the people who murdered my parents, and it was my uncle all along. Him and the Eden family, Ellie's family. They are my mortal enemies. Nerissa couldn't believe it. But, Your Highness, the king killed his own brother and sister-in-law? She knew there was a battle for the throne, but she didn't know that a brother had killed his own brother. They weren't really allowed to talk about it. Now she understood James a little more. He was forced to marry the daughter of the person who killed his parents. You see, that's why I can never love her or even look at her. Every time I see her face, I am reminded of my parents. In fact, I can't wait to have my own revenge. James gripped the corner of his bed. Does Princess Eleanor know about this incident? No, but does it matter? The same blood flows through her veins, the same foul blood, and I'm going to make her pay for what her father did. An evil smile came on Nerissa's face as he said this. She wanted to put the final nail in the coffin. Wouldn't it be great if we can have a little revenge together? The prince smiled back at her. He jumped out of bed and barked, Sir Lawrence. Sir Lawrence was the prince's personal bodyguard. A man of incredible stealth, he could cut down a person in a matter of seconds. He peeked his head into the room. Your Highness called. An evil grin spread across James's face. Bring Princess Eleanor here. I'm going to start my revenge on her right now.